Hey everybody, welcome to GTech. And if you remember a couple months ago, I had the absolute pleasure of interviewing Zach Nelson, aka Jerry Rig Everything. I was so astounded that he was willing to do that interview, and I'm super happy to announce that I'm doing it once more with none other than Michael Fisher, aka Mr. Mobile. How are you doing, Mr. Fisher? It's so good to see you.
George, thank you for having me. I'm doing fine, thanks. I feel like we're all in a kind of a funky headspace right now, but we've adapted. We're those of us lucky enough to still be working, get to still do it. So I feel pretty good for an effective Monday. Thanks for having me on.
Basically. Yeah, my pleasure, man. Okay, so to start this off, let's just kind of go with let's kind of learn like who is Mr. Mobile? Who are you? What is it that you do? Where can we find you? What's your topic that your channel is about?
Sure. Yeah. I use the broadest sense possible of the term mobile. So my channel, I host a YouTube channel. My name is Michael Fisher. I host a YouTube channel called Mr. Mobile, where I predominantly review mobile technology. Again, I tried to go broad with it. I wanted to, after years spent only covering smartphones, I was like, cool, we're starting a new channel. We're calling it Mr. Mobile. We're going to cover everything from smartwatches to electric cars and cruise ships with robot bartenders and VR. And if it could be fit into the word mobile loosely, I'm going to cover it. And I still do that. But it turns out most people only care when I talk about smartwatches and smartphones. So it's mostly smartwatches and smartphones.
Yeah, that's definitely the big topic that everyone's raving about nowadays.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Still, weirdly, because when we
yes.
got started in 2016, when like after I'd been doing it for 5 years and we're starting to talk about what Mr. Mobile is going to be, I remember one of the people instrumental in making it happen was like, look, it's got to be broader than phones because in 5 years, these are going to be as interesting as cordless phones. No one's going to care. And it's like, that didn't quite come true. But that's thanks to a couple factors we didn't foresee, which we'll talk about.
Yeah. Especially with like all the innovations and stuff going on. Like I'm currently loving your series Into the Fold. That's a good one.
Thank
Because
you.
folding phones is such a it's such a huge like innovation. It's something people really haven't done before. At least not the typical clamshell with the folding
Yeah.
screen type of
Oh,
phones.
I'm absolutely obsessed. So thank you for plugging that series because of the various series I've been starting to kickstart. That's the one that's kind of been slowest going because people were really amped for a minute and then they weren't sure. So yes,
Hmm.
I'm very excited about that category still.
So before we get all into that, let's go along with this next question. What did you do before you did YouTube? I've heard you used to use like the alias Captain Two Phones.
Yeah, yeah, that was a Twitter handle that came out of a nickname someone gave me at a theater party because I used to carry two phones all the time because I wanted to. Even before I was in the business, I was a phone nerd of the most supreme degree. So smartphones did some things well, dumb phones did some things well, and to get the best of each, you would carry both. So people started calling me Lord Two Phones and Captain Two Phones. I was like, that's a pretty cool Twitter handle. I'm gonna steal it.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah. But it was I had a whole my career before tech reporting before 2011 was I was an actor. I was a voice artist.
Okay.
Um, yeah, it wasn't until 2011 that I actually started making money, writing, sharing my views about technology, which was
Oh
great,
yeah. Yeah.
amazing.
What got you interested in tech? Was it mobile devices or was it just everything that you kind of clicked with you? You're like, wow, what a world.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been into it's really easy to be into technology if you grew up in the 90s because like that was this wave of tech just overtaking everything. You almost couldn't avoid it.
Mm-hmm.
And I was already into it thanks to my TV viewing habits because in the 90s Star Trek The Next Generation was a very popular show,
Yep. Yeah.
And I mean, I became obsessed when I was, when you're in second and third grade and you just become fixated on that thing that defines you.
Oh,
Uh,
absolutely.
yeah, I mean, for some people it's sports, for some people it's, whatever debate club, what have you, band. For me, it was Star Trek. I could not get off of it, and I've been obsessed ever since. That really helped solidify my love for this like handheld technology that I never thought would come into being. I never thought would get invented. And by the time I got to college, half of the stuff you could buy already. I was like,
Oh
I can't believe
yeah. You're like, whoa, this is
it.
crazy. It's like this has it's all been like works of fiction and just people's imagination. And now you go outside and you're like, there's tech everywhere. You're like,
And you
whoa,
can buy it. Like it's not,
absolutely.
it's never cheap, but if you have the money, you can buy it. Um,
Absolutely.
What about you? I was curious about what got you like started in the tech space.
So it kind of happened around, I was maybe 12 or 13. I was like, as a kid, I was always big into like games and stuff, just like video games. Like
Sure.
I had a Nintendo DS when I was like 6 or something. That was my first like personal console. So like
Nice.
I grew up playing Pokemon. That was like like my favorite game series basically. Um,
Right.
and I'm like, wow, this technology is really cool. And eventually I moved on to computer games. That's kind of like what I've been doing my channel around, is like computer gaming PCs, that sort of hardware. Um,
Roger. Yeah.
and
I know the gaming rig there. The headset is nice.
Thank you. Yeah, it's actually the M50X is by Audio Technica, and I have a
Nice.
little Mod Mic 4, I believe it is. Yes, I have the box over there. Mod Mic 4, and it's just this little like magnetic detachable microphone. So I put it down like this.
Oh, that's incredible. I was going to ask if it was magnetic. I, when I was a kid, I was also into other weird stuff, and I became oddly fixated on headphones with boom microphones. Thanks to a show called "You Can't Do That on Television," which is just not worth going into. But I mean, that immediately caught my eye. And Audio Technica makes great stuff. Good
Oh,
for you.
absolutely. I've had these for 4 years or something. Love them.
I love that not only that this technological revolution of a kind has enabled me to carry the stuff I loved from Star Trek, communicators and tricorders and stuff, but
Yeah,
it makes it so that you can work or you can play from anywhere. And it's a tired
absolutely.
commercial tagline, but it's so nice. When I was a kid, you had to like, I did decide whether I was going to be at my dad's house or my mom's house so that I could use the computer, the one computer we
Mm-hmm.
had.
Yeah,
And like, you're stuck in one room in one house, and no, give me mobile tech that lets me do anything anywhere, and it's awesome. I love it.
absolutely. Yeah, and it's crazy how far it's come, because I
Yeah.
constantly use the example of how it was what the iPhone 4 is more powerful than the Apollo 11 computer, something like
Pretty,
that.
pretty sure the first iPhone is roughly 80 times more powerful. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like it's crazy seeing how far all that's come. But yeah, what kind of like really kind of hit that, it made the gears turn in the spark. I had this old like this e-machines, just real basic email machine kind of desktop that I was playing games
Right.
on. I'm like, wow, this is terrible. It runs games so bad. And then I took over our family's laptop, and I'm like, well, why is it better now? And one time I took the side panel off the computer, and I'm like, what is all of this? This is
Yeah.
cool.
Oh, absolutely. I remember pulling the side panel off a tower first and being just petrified because we were really conditioned not to touch it because of static discharge and stuff.
Yep.
And I was like, my
Mm-hmm.
dad's like, we got to go find we got to do this down in the basement. Just hold on to one of these pipes while we do it so we don't shut this thing down.
Yeah.
Of course, now you watch anybody on YouTube just pulling panels off everything and just
Oh
willy
yeah.
nilly grabbing stuff. It's
Yeah.
fun.
So since you're all in the mobile game, what's like your favorite like smartphone? I know that's like the real basis of your channel. What's like the least or the your most favorite smartphone and your least favorite? Whether
So
that
are we
you've
doing ones that are like currently on the market or like an all time kind of thing?
either or, whether you've owned it, you've seen it, it's hasn't been made for 20 years.
Yeah, you know what? So I'll give you that one. The all time answer probably
Hmm.
of devices I've owned. Like, what would I want to go back to if it were possible? It's not a very original answer, but you're familiar with the Palm Pre running WebOS
Yes. Yeah, yeah.
from 2009. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's probably where I'd go back to. And look, it was full of bugs and it was undercooked and it was kind of a disaster. But the way WebOS thought you should deal with a smartphone was unlike any other platform, and it was almost always right.
Hmm.
From moving notifications to the bottom of the screen to the way you multitask to it got so much right, and it is a continuing tragedy that it just augured into the ground thanks to HP really.
Yeah.
But like on a broader sense, I think or in a more recent sense, hands down, the phones I get excited about most right now are the foldables. I mean, I have my Galaxy Fold as a daily driver. My
Hmm.
Galaxy Z Flip was my weekend phone, and then I'm borrowing this one from Motorola because they lent it to me for the most recent Into the Fold, and I'm still holding on to it
Yeah.
and pretending to ignore them when they ask for it back. Just kidding, but I want to.
Yeah.
And each day when you use these things, and it is so cutting edge, you kind of find one new thing to get annoyed about, and one new thing that you're so happy about because they're just pushing the envelope and figuring out new ways to deliver a mobile phone experience in this bizarre,
Absolutely.
weird package, you know?
Yeah.
So,
It's crazy with all these innovations that we've seen mobile technology take throughout the years. For example, we'll go back to some of the like old clamshell types of phones, and then when
yeah,
Steve Jobs introduced the iPhone, and then it's like, oh, now we have this formula to make a smartphone, and then they started getting smaller and smaller, and then they started getting really big, and now you've got
massive. Yeah.
massive screens like this one right here.
Yeah.
um, and you've got what else? You've got triple camera setups. You've got one thing that people really don't like is lack of headphone jack.
Right.
So it's all these little bits and pieces. Oh, here's another one. You've got the hole punch camera. That's another one. Like the step with the notch and all that. And now we're getting like
And
pop up. So
what drives me nuts is like once the pop-up camera, that's a really good point. Like once you had that was the kind of the last gasp of hardware innovation,
mm-hmm.
where you had a company who was like, well, we don't want to do a notch, we don't want to do a hole punch, or we can't do either of those things for whatever reason. So we're going to do this pop-up camera module, and isn't that fun? But that was it. That was the last bit of fun anyone had. And now that we're into hole punch cameras, and soon they'll find a way to hide it under the display so you don't even have a hole in it. It just will be invisible.
Mm-hmm.
Then we will finally have achieved the horrible nightmare of just having a sea of rectangles that is truly boring, and then they will only differentiate based on color. And
Yeah,
boy, that sucks. I have no
absolutely.
interest in that. That's why I'm so pleased that there are manufacturers who are taking the folding concept and running with it and seeing what works and failing. I
Yeah,
mean, there are companies, there are a bunch of these that aren't going to sell. I guarantee you the Razor's not selling as well as Motorola would like. Uh,
absolutely.
Even the Superior Z Flip is probably, I mean, it's a $1,300 phone. It's a $1,500 phone. Of course, it's so early in their adoption, but it's so fun to kind of go back to this 2004, 2005 era free for all design. We're trying something new because we have a new technology. Let's see what works. I love that. That's exciting.
Absolutely. And like even if it doesn't work out, companies they got to fail a little bit to succeed. They learn what does and
Sure.
what doesn't work. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. And isn't it fun to like, I continue, to be clear, I recommend to most people that you shouldn't spend $1,500 so you have the privilege of beta testing a product for a company. It's just, but
Yeah.
that's how this always starts out. These companies have to make their money back on the R&D. They have to make sure they can afford to make a second gen and a third gen that might actually be good.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm glad that there's a contingent of folks who love the bleeding edge enough to buy them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Even when all the folding phones and stuff were getting announced, I thought about it personally. I'm like, wow, this is a really cool kind of step that people haven't taken before. That companies haven't done before. And I thought about it. I'm like, how what's the word? I was gonna say like how realistic is this towards being the next step?
Right.
Because it's a huge swing out of left park. Like it's coming right out of nowhere. Um,
Yeah.
so it's like it's
And it carries a lot of compromise with it too, right? I mean, you have durability sacrifices, you have reliability sacrifices. They're far from perfect. So you're absolutely right.
yeah. And going back to what you were saying about beta testing, like a first gen product, I thought about that myself. I'm like, oh, this the Galaxy Z Flip and the Moto Razr. I'm like, these are awesome phones, but like, there's too much kind of not perfect about them right now that I don't really want to spend the money towards yet. Maybe I'll get
Yep.
one when I'm 23, 25, something like that. So give it a
I
couple
think
years.
exactly. And once they mature and then you've got a really solid product and the price will have come down at that point, I think, yeah, we're a generation or two out from that kind of perfect Moto Razr where you're like, and then you're going to see the perennial favorite headline of every tech reviewer is, the Moto Razr 3 is the phone the first Moto Razr should have been. And then we'll get
Yep.
to that point and
Yep.
then you should spend money on it.
Absolutely. Next, let's kind of talk about uh, the Mr. Mobile channel, like the behind the scenes. So
Yeah.
what's kind of like some of the gear that you use to film, like your cameras, your lights, lenses? Any
So
particular favorites?
yeah, it's actually been a pretty good soldier. I've been using the Sony A7S II for all of my principal photography in the studio.
Okay.
And when I'm on the road, a couple of years ago, I augmented that because it was too big and heavy with the cage I had on the monitor and all the crap you have to stick on it to make it work right. Because
Yeah.
no matter what camera you buy, it's so crazy to me that no matter what camera you buy, it's going to be an order of magnitude less convenient than shooting with a phone. It's
Yes.
more finicky. it's harder, it's dumber, it doesn't last as long. The batteries, they you attach things, the cords. It's just so freaking dinosaur, man. I can't wait until we finally finish driving a stake into the heart of the camera industry with phone cameras that are increasingly better, because I shoot with an iPhone 11 so often and it's so great. But
Yeah.
anyway,
Yeah, that's definitely like the king of videography in smartphones.
yeah,
Absolutely. No
it's
contest.
just a pleasure to use.
Yeah.
But the Sony A7S II is great for studio stuff. It's great for low light. I put it on my slider and stuff, and that kind of stays in the studio.
Hmm.
When I'm out and about, as I say, I augment it with a Fuji X-T3, which is a very wonderful little camera. I owe my buddy David Amell at Android Authority, and also Mark Lensangen, big shout outs to introducing me to that camera and showing what it can do in good hands.
Yeah.
So get that if you want a good solid camera for the road that looks like something your dad would have carried in 1975, and yet modern things like USB-C and dual SD cards and that
Absolutely.
kind of stuff.
Here's kind of just like a random question for me, really.
Yeah.
Is there any like particular type of lens you would recommend? I'm literally just using the kit lens that came with the camera because I don't know a whole lot about DSLRs and mirrorless. I'm still fine tuning the settings on this, and it's just
Yeah.
I think 24 to 42 millimeter.
Yeah, I think I use a 24 to 70 kit lens on my A7S II, and I use a kit lens on the Fuji too. I'm not a big lens connoisseur either. There is one thing I will say though: if you can find a macro lens, a good macro lens for whatever camera you've got,
Mm-hmm.
I've got one, and I don't remember which one it is. I'm sorry, I would have brought it up, but it's basically the only macro lens that most people buy for the Sony. It's a big telephoto, and that's what allows me to get, like, if I want to get right in on the camera module on a phone and have it fill the whole frame and be tack sharp with focus, so you can see the lens wiggle when it's trying to do its autofocus thing. Like, that lens is amazing, and I think pretty much any macro lens with a good review is a great investment. It was expensive. It was as expensive as the camera body,
Yeah.
but it was so worth it. It has made its money back time and again over the years.
That's
great.
awesome. Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to get creative with mine, with what little little focal length that I have. So sometimes I'll just take the camera super far back and just crank the zoom, so then the
Absolutely.
background's like really blurred and faded out, and then I just play with the focus ring a little bit. I'm like, wow, this looks really good for a lens that came included with the camera. So
Definitely. Oh yeah. Yeah, it's great. I mean, kit lenses get a bum rap, but unless you want to carry around like a Gorilla or what do you call it? What do you call those cases? A Pelican case with 5 lenses in it for every opportunity, which is great. If you can do that, awesome.
yeah.
I'm way too, when we're not locked down in quarantine, I'm usually way too mobile for that. So I'm just like, just one of these lenses will be fine. Kit lenses usually panned out for me.
Mm-hmm.
If I had more lenses, maybe I would have a different opinion on that.
Yeah. Yeah, I know some people are like super picky on their lenses.
Definitely. And there are a lot better cinematographers out there than me, frankly. You know what I mean? I kind of stumble into the cool shots that I get. I think cinematography is not my number one skill.
Yeah.
I'll say.
Yeah. I got you. Let's see. What is your video making routine? Like, how do you stay organized? How do you go about each step? Because personally, I just have a big Excel spreadsheet with a title, and then I have columns that go film, edit, render, thumbnail, upload, and I just change the color of the box when I work on it.
Nice. Yeah. I mean, that's effectively what I do in terms of the production schedule, except I use a database software called Airtable, because that's what the rest of my part of the company I work for uses. I'm like, I don't like databases. This is lame. But then somebody taught me how to use it for 20 minutes. I'm like, oh, okay. Yeah, no, this is useful. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
But in terms of the production itself, man, it's the same. It's a process that allows me at every point to go back a step and fix the errors that I made. Because when you write something and then you look at it the next day and you're like, how did I ever think, no, this was only 70% right. I got to throw away a third of it and fix it.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
The process that I use allows me to go back at every step and do that. So I write a script, and then from the script, I generate a shot list of all the shots I need, and then I start shooting. And in the middle of shooting, I realized, well, I left out like 40 things. Go back, add them to the script, add them to the shot list, then record the voiceover. And as I'm recording the voiceover, I'm like, nah, this is not the way. I'm just going to say it the way I wanted to say it, even though it's not written this way. And then when I'm editing the voiceover, I find other stuff that I change. And sometimes I just cut whole sentences out. I'm just, get it out of here. You already said it. Shut up, shut up, shut up. And you go into the video edit process. And then you can find other stuff that you can choose. So, like, I think that's the the short answer is I'm always refining what I started out with.
Yeah.
And sometimes it still makes it to YouTube and it's like,
You're like,
people are
oh, I
like,
could have
why
changed
didn't,
this.
oh yeah, people are like, why didn't you talk about the power button being in the wrong place? I'm like, I did, and I deleted it like an idiot.
Oh,
But don't worry about
yeah.
it.
Oh, yeah. So like, that's actually a good way of looking at it because you've got like your whole kind of, we'll call it like your sphere of a video or whatever, and you're really polishing it and you're like smoothing every little rough edge down to get it like this perfectly smooth and like refined piece of work that you're willing to say, hey, I made this and I love it. Yeah,
Right.
that's
Yeah,
awesome.
that's a really good analogy because I
Yeah.
mean, a lot of other, everyone has their own process. This is the process that allows me to hit publish and be reasonably happy that I've said what I wanted to say,
Hmm.
instead of back in the day when, like in 2012, you'd go to a trade show and it's just running a gun. You've got the camera, you're just rolling, you're barely editing, you're just riffing, reading stuff off the spec sheet on the fly, elbowing people out of your way because it's a trade show thing. You hit upload and you're like, well, I got half of that wrong, but at least I beat the other guy. Like
Yeah.
that sucked. I didn't
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I've definitely I've looked back at some of my stuff from like years back, like even when I wasn't doing like tech stuff, because I didn't start out in tech. I've changed my channel topic several times.
Oh,
Um,
nice.
and then
Cool.
I've really settled in on tech because one, I really like it, and two, it really was pulling in the views. And even though
Yeah.
I'm not monetized, I just do it for fun right now. Um,
Cool.
I'm seeing huge increase in views and subs. I actually just hit, I think it was 500. Yeah, 500
Nice.
subs.
Nice. Congrats.
Thank you. I hit it.
Halfway to the four figures.
Yeah, it's crazy. Um, but like just the growth with more refined upload schedule. I've been trying to do a 2 week upload schedule because that gives me plenty of time to refine my process. So I'm not like kicking out videos every 2 days and I'm like, I'm not learning the process. I'm just quantity over
Oh,
quality.
yeah, and like quality over quantity is the way to go. So I think you're
Yeah,
doing, it's like, yeah, there's nothing worse than hitting publish again and not being entirely happy with what you've uploaded. So I
absolutely.
think that's exactly the right approach, and I'm glad it's working out. And I'm glad you've. Some people find, some people stumble into success by doing things they don't really like.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it'd be one thing if you were like, I found that I got a lot of views with my, underwater cupcake basket weaving, but I don't really like it. But it gets all kinds of views, and I'm making a lot of money. And I'm like, oh, cool, congrats. Are you happy? And then the answer is kind of never really yes.
Exactly. Yeah.
So it's cool that you like tech and that it's giving you those rewards, because that's the win-win. I mean, that's the dream, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Because, sorry, I don't mean to keep rambling on, but um, like even a year or two ago, I was trying to do some little bit of like gameplay here and there, just funny stuff. And then I started doing tech like every couple of weeks, and I'm like, wow, the views are starting to go up. And I went, when I hit 500 subs, I posted a thing on Twitter of like how long it took me to get to 100, 200, 300, 400, 500. And it was like from 0 to 100 was like a year and a half, and then like 100 to 200 was like 3 years. I've had my channel since 2013, but I haven't posted like
It hasn't been
seriously for a while.
yeah, it
Um,
was like a hobby, right? Yeah.
exactly. Um, so like when I even went 300 to 400, it was like 2 months, and then 400, 500, it was less than 2 weeks. And I'm like, this is nuts. I like
Yeah.
this.
Yes. I've had a similar thing recently where I just started making a new series on old phones, on vintage phones. It's called When
Yeah,
Phones Were Fun.
I love it.
And
Yeah.
thank you. But I just did it because I was like, look, I want to do a video. I want to do it. I want to just be chasing releases over and over and say,
Mm-hmm.
this is the Pixel 5. Okay.
Yeah.
So I didn't expect it to be a big view count winner, but it's been just slaying. Like, people really want to see these old phones. And I think people are very nostalgic right now for a time when the world wasn't just on fire. So
Basically.
I think that's helping feed it. And it's so rewarding because, again, like you, it's something I wanted to do anyway. And it turns out that's something people want to watch. So, oh my God, what? No one should be this lucky. This is great.
Yeah.
I'm getting everything I want.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's crazy because you did the Matrix phone, and I'm like, oh, this is cool. I didn't realize they did like special edition releases back whenever that got released. Like I know OnePlus did the McLaren edition of like the
Yeah.
what was it, the 7T Pro?
Yeah, 7T Pro, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when that came out, the Matrix phone, I'm like, whoa, this is kind of a cool thing. I didn't realize this. And then you released the other one. I forget the name of it for the life of me.
Motorola Aura.
There you go. And I'm like, You mean to tell me that phones were like $1,000 this many years ago? I'm like, this is,
2000.
yeah. And I'm like, look at how,
Yes.
I'm like, look at this. This is beautiful. It was like perfect. What was it? Steel? Aluminum?
Sapphire. It was stainless steel and sapphire. What
Yeah.
a work of art that thing
And I'm
is.
like, whoa, this is crazy.
And like that, these are not abnormalities.
Yeah.
This was normal. Like every year, particularly again, 2005, 2006, 2004, every year, like Nokia would kick out 16 of these things that are ridiculous. You don't even know they're a phone. You're looking at it, you're like, is this a lipstick thing? Oh, wow. And
Yeah.
I miss that so much. And it's so nice to be able to revisit it and just, it's wild.
Mm-hmm.
There's so much past out there to mine, and I'm so excited to get into it.
Yeah. What is like one device that you use in your video making process that you just cannot live without?
Yeah, this is a two-part answer, actually. Weirdly, you've probably seen me wear these in my videos.
Yeah.
This is
Isn't it just a little lav mic?
that's all it is. Like this, it's called the Rode Wireless Go.
Okay.
This is the transmitter, and then this is the receiver that plugs into the camera.
Okay.
And look, the sound quality isn't the best. You hear a large gulf in sound quality when I switch from my VO B-roll to A-roll here, especially here in this echo-filled living room.
Mm-hmm.
We're stuck at home.
Yeah.
But from a convenience standpoint, this is amazing. If I wanted to, I could plug in a lav mic. I've got a little 3.5 millimeter thing in here and
Okay.
run it under the shirt and do the tape. You can do that,
Yeah.
but it's so much easier to just clip it on. It's got an integrated mic. It's right here.
Yeah.
It's got my logo.
I was gonna
That's
say,
fun.
especially because you got your little emblem on it. I'm like, that's perfect.
It's perfect. If I wasn't able to stick the logo on here, I think it would be a lot clunkier looking. And I understand why people don't dig it. They want to do the lav.
Oh yeah, like
But
under
look,
the shirt and the collar or something.
yeah.
Yeah.
But again, you can do it.
Mhm.
The sound quality is fine. It's not great, but it's fine. And the convenience of it, of just being, this is my microphone solution. This is what I carry with me in my bag when I'm rolling down the street. Back when we used to travel, it just doesn't take up space in a bag, and it lets you do the job. It's great. So the
Absolutely.
Rode Wireless Go, they're wonderful. And refreshingly, one of these products that I don't have to set out a disclaimer for. I'm like, they sent me these, so I don't know, #ad, but
Yeah.
I just bought those. Because too many people around me were using them,
Okay.
and I was like, I want to be able to do stand-up talking to the camera stuff easily. So I bought that. The other part is this really much more primitive solution, which I told you before. I shot a lot of iPhone stuff on the go.
Yeah. Yeah.
I shoot a lot with a lot of smartphones, but this is the Benro BK10, and it is a selfie stick, and it is also a tripod.
Yeah.
And you can find really cheap ones on Amazon that do both things, that are both selfie stick and tripod, but so many of them are garbage, and they're not worth the time.
Yeah.
And this one, for various reasons, is just perfect.
Yeah.
And I have not spent better money in a while than I have on this, and I think it was like $30. So
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah, I actually have one. I almost thought that was the exact model I have. Like it's
Really?
yeah, it's a I got it at Micro Center for like $25 or something. And it's just like that. It's a selfie stick, it's a tripod, and when I didn't have my G7 and I was shooting all my stuff on my G6, I'm like, this is perfect. I can just set it like this. I'm good to go. Sure, the focus and the color balance might be kind of garbage, but like
That's not the tripod's fault, right?
exactly. Yeah, and I'm like, I love that thing.
You can go portrait, you can go landscape. It's got
Yeah.
this ball thing on it. I mean, it's just it's so handy when you don't have a cameraman with you and you get a quick shot of yourself doing something.
Yeah, yeah. Mine actually, I'm gonna have to dig through my thing right here. Whatever, I'll deal with that later. It actually came with like, it was like a GoPro adapter. It was like another adapter as opposed to just the expandable phone clip one.
Just the clamp. Yeah.
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 So that's
It's amazing. Like the things that matter the most, or the things that end up being the most useful, are often the simplest things. Like that's $30. You know,
Yeah.
it's not a $2,000 lens.
exactly.
But I think of that like every day. Not to diminish the lens, because the lens is important, but like,
Oh, absolutely.
even a tiny little purchase can really make your life easier for like 2 years.
Yeah, definitely. You mentioned previously that you used to be an actor. What was that like, and how has it kind of helped you get straight into the video making process?
I think it's a popular question, and I think a lot of it's deceptive, because I think a lot of folks think that it tend to equate acting, the craft, with just kind of being on camera, right?
Yeah.
Certainly there are little there are little technical things that acting helps you with, and an acting background helps you with, and that you can just be comfortable in front of a camera. You can sort of improvise a little bit better. Maybe
Mm-hmm.
people have different skills, but I've found it most helpful to me, honestly, in more of the journalism side of the business um, when companies, as they often do, try to tell you, well, this is the best thing ever, and did you know there's nothing at all wrong with it? Were you aware?
Yeah.
And then you're kind of like, cool, thank you. That's BS, and
Yes.
I appreciate it. But let's talk about how it's BS, and why don't you tell me about the things that are wrong with it? Because I have a list.
Yeah.
Uh, Weirdly, the acting training for me helps that more in that respect, because in addition to living realistically under imagined circumstances, acting is really about observing and listening
Mm-hmm.
and reacting.
Okay.
And so if you are really listening, it's much easier to be in an interview situation and say like, cool, okay, I heard you kind of dance around the answer to my question, but can you answer the question this time, please?
Yeah.
It's like it helps a lot with that actual listening, actual interaction.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah. But I miss it. It was a lovely 10 or 15 years of my life that I
Really?
spent regularly. Yeah, I'm counting college in that, but
Okay.
that's what I went to college for. So
Oh, okay.
a lot of commercial work I did then.
Oh, did you? I was just gonna ask. I'm like, what all did you do? Was it like freelance stuff or like commercials and stuff?
I, you know, I think a lot of us were in the same boat of we loved doing theater.
Mm-hmm.
Theater didn't pay a lot, so we would have to do a lot of commercial and industrial work to pay for to fund our theater habit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I ended up, you did whatever in Norfolk, Virginia. The work that would come around would be Discovery Channel specials and reenactments and Navy training videos teaching you how to, put out a fire.
Yeah.
Just got to do a lot of random stuff, and it was
Yeah.
it was fun.
Oh, so you must have like this whole if you look at your resume or whatever, you'll have like a million different like oddball jobs, and it's like, oh, I was a Navy SEAL and then also a
God.
forester. Just two completely opposite ends of the spectrum.
They're beyond weird. I will more about once a month on Twitter, somebody will show. I was like, hey, I'm taking this corporate training video course for my job, and is this you being insensitive to the new coworker? I'm like, oh, yes, it is.
Oh no. Oh, you hate to see it. Oh,
Yeah, exactly.
yeah.
But it was fun. No regrets.
Yeah.
This is all. It's. I think it's always more satisfying to look back on jobs and have fun stories that come from them,
Oh yeah.
rather than have a forgettable job where you can barely remember what it was like. So.
Absolutely. I've noticed that your content is a lot like kind of different than some tech reviewers. Like you do basically almost all B-roll with like a really like professional but still pretty laid back voiceover over top of that. What was kind of your idea to go straight into that? Because I watched a couple of your first videos. I'm like, wow, they're all following this formula, and I'm like, wow, this he's stuck with it through the whole time, the whole way.
Yeah. There are only two things that drove that. One is that again, it's like we were talking about before. It's a lot easier to be accurate. It's a lot easier to get things right when you are able to write a script and say exactly what you want to say and lay that down and not have to cut around you kind of talking to the camera and hewing to your notes, but maybe not saying it exactly the way you want to say it. So it's just easier to be accurate.
Yeah.
But again, when we started Mr. Mobile in particular, this was less true at Pocket Now when we had a lot of other considerations. I didn't want a YouTube channel that looked like everyone else's.
Yeah.
I didn't want to be another talking head that it was mostly about me and look at my face and isn't this, aren't I cool? I was like, people are coming to hear about, whatever, the Z Flip. People are coming to hear about the G7.
Yeah.
I want to spend as much time as possible dwelling on the G7. I want the whole video to allow them to get a sense of whatever device I'm covering. And I want to be in it myself as little as possible. And I think, it sucks because that goes against the rules of YouTube.
Yeah.
That's not why YouTube exists. YouTube exists to make strangers fall in love with personalities. And that kind of sucks.
Absolutely.
But by bucking the trend, the channel hasn't grown as quickly as I would like. And it's still not. And it's growing wonderfully. I'm very happy with it. But, if we had leaned into the more conventional, hey guys, what's up? Back again with another video. And then 45 minutes later, you eventually maybe get to the product you're actually covering.
Yep.
We probably would have grown a lot faster, but
yeah,
didn't want to do that.
Yeah. And that's kind of the trade-off that you make. You're like, you want to really focus in on the title, the topic of the video, the thumbnail, that sort of stuff, and you just want the whole video to be about that one thing, especially
Right.
in the kind of like the tech tuber market, because you're just talking about the OnePlus 8. It's not me and how my day's going, or if you think back to this video, it's like, no, I'm talking about this here and now. Don't worry about me.
Yeah.
Just listen to the spec sheet that I'm listing off what I like, what I don't like. Yeah.
Right. But you know, it's a double-edged sword, right? Because you don't want to get too far away from that, because then you might as well just you may as well work for a big publication with a big publication title and publish your reviews under a byline that nobody cares about. Because again, YouTube exists to give people an opportunity to get to know the host better, the personality better. And so that's what people want. And I love being able to throw that in when possible, but the format will, as long as I can help it, I think the format will always be 80% the product, maybe 20% me on camera, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Personally, I think it's actually worked out pretty well for you. Because your like your whole demeanor to your content or whatever, like I said previously, your whole kind of voiceover style is like, you want to hit bullet point A, B, C, D, be very factual about it, but you also throw in kind of like you're more laid back. Oh, I like this resolution of this screen. The colors are beautiful. As opposed to just saying, it's got a 1440p IPS screen. Okay, next topic.
Reading spec sheets is just cardinal sin number one. Yeah.
Yeah.
No. Loving that SpaceX shirt. I just noticed.
Oh,
it.
Thank you. I got this when I visited. I went to Florida in the summer of 2018. My family and I, we went to the Bahamas. And we went on like a bus tour around like all the
Kennedy Space Center.
Yeah.
I love that bus tour. I've been on that bus tour many times.
Yeah,
Absolutely love it.
I think the coolest thing was we actually got to see a SpaceX launch live. It was at like it was like 4 a.m. or like 2 a.m. or something. We all got up, went on the beach, and it was like a mile or two away, and we just see like the whole horizon just light, and I'm like, whoa, this looks like a sunset, and that's like just taking off, and I'm like, this is nuts. I was.
And then did the sound hit you? Like the sound takes a while to get to you, right?
It does, yeah. Like it was when like the ignition sequence was happening, like you could see the light slowly starting to creep in, and the audio, or the not the audio, the rumble of the engine was just slowly starting to come your way, and you're like, oh, here we go, and then it's just super loud, and you see it going up, and it's like, oh, it was so cool.
God, I would have killed to have seen that. I've never seen a launch in person. One of these days, I got to do it. But it's good for you for seeing.
It's amazing. Yeah, like this shirt, it's actually got like the Falcon Heavy logo on the back of it. So like,
nice.
Yeah, I was gonna wear like my Tesla shirt, but I couldn't find it. I'm like, oh, SpaceX, that's still cool tech. So
SpaceX is cooler right now. Yeah, I love Tesla. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
I wish Musk would stop tweeting. Every so
he is a character.
Sure is.
It's real funny stuff. So this is just kind of about you as Michael Fisher, not really Mr. Mobile. What's kind of like your taste in songs or something?
So I've had this go-to answer for like over a decade. Whenever somebody asks me for a music thing, I am just inexorably linked in my soul with a band out of San Diego called Pinback.
Okay.
And they did kind of indie garage pop stuff in the late 90s and early aughts, and they've just made some of the most beautiful music I've ever heard. So if I have to default to something, and I like a lot of bands. I like weirdos like Dismemberment Plan, and I like old favorites like Dashboard. No, not Dash. I did like Dashboard Confessional, but who am I thinking of? I'll remember it in a second. I like a fairly wide swath of a particular sector of music, but Pinback is always my go-to. Who am I thinking of? Ben Gibbard, the Postal Service, and then they're always sad songs, but they sound like fun songs. Dashboard, Death Cab for Cutie, Jesus, love them. So there's that kind of stuff. If you have written a song that makes me think that it's a joyful song when I first hear it, but if I listen to lyrics, I find out it's a really sad song, that's basically my favorite kind of music.
There you go. That's just like that's musicians at their finest. It's masterful work. What about like favorite shows and movies and stuff? I know you're a big Star Trek fan.
Oh yeah, every possible incarnation of Star Trek.
Yeah.
When I'm not watching Star Trek, I like it. I like specific shows. The newsroom will never fail to make me excited about the semi-newsworthy, newsy, journalistic-y kind of aspects of my job, even though it's not a very realistic show.
Okay.
Also, shows like *Halt and Catch Fire*. Have you watched that
I
one?
have not. What's that on? Is it like Netflix, Hulu,
Highly
or
recommend that.
on
It was
TV?
an AMC show, I
AMC?
think.
Okay.
Yeah, but wonderful fictional recounting of the computer revolution in Texas in the
Oh
'80s, and it's
wow.
just awesome. Anything that's roughly in that vein, I can get behind.
Yeah.
And then we've been experimenting a lot. I don't know. You've been watching a lot more TV now, as probably the rest of us have, right?
It's personally I don't watch a whole lot of TV. I do a lot of
Good for you.
YouTube viewing. Um,
Yeah.
but I have watched. Let's see. What are some shows that I really like? I love Stranger Things. That's a good one.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Gotta love Stranger
Yeah.
Things.
I'm big into like suspenseful shows, movies. Couple
You
of
watch any of the Stephen King stuff that's been made into TV stuff recently?
I have not.
My girlfriend's got me into a few of those. We're watching The Outsider right now, which is quite good.
Okay.
And also the other series of his that I cannot remember. I will look it up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there's a lot of good suspense out there right now.
Cool. For when you're not being Mr. Mobile, what are some kind of things you like doing when you're not making videos or reviewing phones?
Used to be a lot of traveling, but since we can't do that now, I sort of have to adapt. Whereas before, I would just get so bored, we would take a trip upstate and try to find an Airbnb or a getaway house or something just to see new areas and meet new people.
Oh yeah.
Now, I've had to adapt to taking just insanely long walks and trying to stay away from people.
Yep.
Which is actually easier than you would think. In Brooklyn, my neighborhood is pretty quiet, and there's a big industrial zone nearby. So I just walk through and explore these centuries-old streets that have that don't see a lot of human interaction because they're made for industry. And I like doing that while listening to podcasts. And
Okay.
when I get back to my ancestral homelands, I like to go out on our small, modest sailboat, and it's really fun to just kind of try to disconnect.
Yeah,
Because
absolutely.
we live in such a connected society, and
Yeah.
our work amplifies that.
Mhm.
So it's cool to try to not check Twitter for a while. That's always a fun time. Cool to read a
Exactly.
book. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah,
like old,
absolutely.
antique.
Here's one that's kind of random. What do you think is going to be the next big trend for like smartphones?
Yeah, it's tough to predict these things, obviously. And I think there are some great analysts out there who do a much better job than I do of actually predicting the future. But um, it seems to me, and people will disagree with me on this, but to bring it back to what we were talking about at the top of the show, that the foldable revolution having just begun, I think there are a lot more surprises in store for us in this space over the next few years than a lot of people expect. As manufacturers continue to try to figure out, okay, well, we've got clamshells and we've got the kind of foldable, pocketable tablet thing, but what happens when we do 3 panes like TCL is doing? What
Yeah.
happens when you do a wallet, right?
Yep.
What happens when you can unfurl a phone like a pirate's treasure map?
Exactly.
I can't see any other category being more exciting for the next few years than foldables and scrollables and just flexible display phones. I think that's going to be where the industry goes next, because for all the naysayers out there, there are a lot of people who just don't see the point of saying, okay, well, I have a phone that's shaped like this, and then it folds up and it's smaller for your pocket. They're like, well, I see the point of the tablet, but why would you want this? It just has disadvantages and stuff. But it's when you use them for a while, and when you remember what clamshell phones were like 15 years ago, and when you're actually like, wow, this actually fits in every pocket I have, and I can put more things in there.
Exactly.
That's not a trivial advantage, man. It's cool. It's a thing that is one thing in one context and another thing in another. And we're just going to see more and more experimentation around that. I think it's going to be a very exciting few years.
Absolutely. Yeah. Even give it like, say 5 years from now. Like, I feel like the foldable phone and the foldable phablet type of phone, that's going to be, the formula is going to be really nailed down for that. People are going to be making them left and right. Because right now we've seen Samsung, Motorola, you said TCL, and we haven't seen a lot else. So we just got to give it time. Yeah. Companies will be like, that's cool. Let's try that. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you've got, the other little Royole, which made some of the displays for some of these, is and beat some folks to a consumer ready device. And then you've got other manufacturers who are definitely working on foldable stuff, even though I'm not allowed to say which ones.
No, I got you. Yeah.
It is, you know, it's going to be very exciting.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, especially for someone like you who's grown up like uh, in the whole where the market of smartphones was all the clamshell type of phones. They were these little plastic things.
Yeah.
Like going back to seeing what we see now with like the Moto's the Razr and the Z Flip. Um,
Hmm.
Seeing that and you're like, wow, what a nostalgia trip it is.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, and in some cases, like the Razor, like it's potent nostalgia combined with actual functionality increases,
Yeah.
and then in addition to all the compromises that we've been talking about all show. So
Yeah.
it's always nice when companies able to be like, we're not just re-releasing an old beloved design, but we're making it in a modern way that you can actually use today, and it's not just a party trick. That's
Absolutely.
really,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. It's going to be crazy. We've got a good couple years ahead of us to see the
We
next
do.
big thing happen. So
Stay tuned.
basically, yeah. Okay. I think that's basically it that I have in this questions list that I emailed to you. I think we covered
Awesome.
basically everything. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Awesome.
Good stuff.
Awesome.
So
Well,
man, yeah, thank you for having me on. I really, it's been nice to just kind of rap about tech with someone who's riding the wave of an increased audience.
mhm.
Leaning
Yeah.
into that. It's gonna be cool. I hope it continues to go well for you.
Awesome. Thank you. And yeah, thank you for joining me. I'm so glad that you were willing to sit down and talk for just what, an hour? Yeah, just sit
Yeah,
down, talk about all sorts of tech for an hour. Ugh, I
absolutely.
love it.
It's
I could
always
do it for days.
same. If I didn't have YouTube videos to make, I could do it for weeks. But you know,
Absolutely.
work.
Yeah. Awesome.
Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thank you for joining me. Okay, so that basically wraps up my interview with Michael Fisher. Mr. Mobile, if you're watching this, thank you so much once again for sitting with me and talking just for like an hour. I love doing this sort of thing. Basically, that's going to do it for now. So if you like this video, you know what to do. And if you want to see more stuff like this, make sure to get sub below because I love making this stuff for you guys. And as always, have a good one.
Honey, I'm